Okay, it's April 28th. We're here with Sheriff William Honsal for his media availability.
That's right. I'm going to take off my mask so I can actually answer questions.
Sounds
Really,
good.
okay?
Okay. So, as a sheriff, what would you tell the protester who argues that the shelter-in-place order is more dangerous than the virus, and then that protester deliberately violates the shelter-in-place order?
Right. Well, anyone has the right to protest. It's part of living in this country. It's our constitutional right, and so people can, get out there and protest. And I do not, I will not object to anyone going out and using their fundamental, constitutional rights. However, when it comes to me and Dr. Frankovich making these overall decisions, what we'll do is we'll act in what's best interest of this community based upon the facts that we have at the time. So we're the ones that are making decisions. We are the ones that actually have to live by the decisions that we make. And so I'm elected to do this job here as sheriff. The public health officer is appointed to do her job. And so we're supposed to do what's best for the overall public health. So as far as the protester goes, he or she has the right to do so. He or she has the right to have an opinion. And to me, it's up to them to express that view. But I'm going to listen to the people that actually have the data and have the facts that we're supposed to consider, and also adhere to our state guidelines. Our governor has put into place a state guideline to where we cannot go out from under it. We can only become more restrictive as part of less restrictive. That's how the state law it really, really works. So if people want to protest, people want to see something change, it has to change on the state level first. So I urge people, reach out to your congressman, reach out to your state senator, reach out to your assemblyman. So Senator McGuire has been very, very accessible. Assemblymember Wood has been very accessible. They're interested, they're engaged. They want to hear from people. What should the state do in this time? And that would be to allow us in the county to make our decisions based upon the roadmap that the governor has laid out, and that we can make decisions if we are on that roadmap and we have adhered to all the things that they've put guidelines to make us sure that we're ready in case things do surge here, and that we do have contact tracing and robust testing, and that we have an alternate care site, and we have the ability to care for the vulnerable population. All these things that are part of the framework, we have those things set up, then allow us to make decisions of what essential businesses or non-essential businesses should be open next, and to let us open up our economy here to the restrictions that our economy can open up, as long as we have these restrictions in place, like a masking order, like we have some universal guidelines for businesses. The masking order, the disinfectant at the door, hand washing stations, making sure employees are utilizing the social and physical distancing, as well as standard and queuing, and all those things in business that we're trying to push out there right now. So that would be my case that I would lay out for the people that are upset about how things are going.
And, with that, you talked about like hand washing things for businesses, and that kind of rolls into this business compliance affidavit that rolled out this week.
Yeah.
First of all, can you just tell us a little bit more about that? I know there's signage, there's an affidavit they have to sign. Can you give us a little background about why that's coming into play and what it is?
So what we want to do is we want to instill confidence in our community that people and businesses are doing things to prepare for us opening up. And one of those things is laying out an affidavit for businesses to be able to adhere to certain guidelines and suggestions, things that I just laid out, that there's proper signage, that there's sanitation stations, that there's making sure that there's 6 feet social distancing and widespread areas that are touched, that are cleaned on a regular basis. So there's these things in place that you would expect as a business, if you're trying to avoid getting COVID, that they would put these measures, these mitigating factors in place. And so that is what we're pushing out to restaurants right now, is they have a signed affidavit that's saying we will adhere to all these standards and guidelines set forth by the public health officer, and give assurances to the public that we're doing that by putting this sign in the window. Restaurants are the first, we're imagining grocery stores will be the next, and then general businesses after that. And so we're planning on pushing it out this week and continuing it next week, and then as the next phase of our open, of lifting the shelter in place, we're able to push this information out to those businesses, and so the community can rest assured that people are doing what they can to make sure they reduce the chance of spreading COVID.
Sure. And how will the sheriff's office be verifying compliance by those restaurants who sign the affidavit?
So on number one is we have a list of those restaurants that do that, but also we can do spot checks. Also, we rely on people that actually will call our business compliance line. And I don't have that number in front of me. Maybe you can flash it in the screen
Sure.
below.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but those are the things that, as far as the business compliance, people can be our watchdog out there, and the community can be our watchdog. People, shouldn't support businesses that aren't adhering to these guidelines, right? And so we want to make sure that people are safe, and the community will actually, do the policing for us, I believe. So if they're not shopping at these businesses, they're complaining at these businesses, we're going to get complaints. We'll follow up with our code enforcement. Maybe, start with a phone call, then go with code enforcement. And the ultimate goal is to get them in compliance. If they will not get into compliance, then that's when enforcement has to take place. Citations have to be issued and those kind of things.
Okay. And then this, is along the same lines. We probably kind of already answered it, but what assurances will the public have that businesses are following proper distancing requirements and taking proactive measures to keep their spaces clean?
Yeah, so businesses, I think, people are not going to shop there if they don't feel safe. And so people aren't utilizing these things, they're going to go elsewhere. And so I think as far as competition goes, people are going to want to do the things that are going to keep their customers safe and their employees safe. So they're going to have their employees masks. They're going to have all these systems in place, and people are going to be able to advertise that on their window that, hey, they're in compliance. Here's our compliance certificate. Here's our signed affidavit. So people understand that. And so people can feel safe venturing out, because there are people on extremes. People that think this is a conspiracy and there's no coronavirus at all and it's just a government conspiracy. And you have people that are scared to leave their house, will not leave their house. And so we want to make sure that those people that are vulnerable or are nervous and afraid, that they're able to come into these businesses and have some assurances that they will be protected as they venture out again.
And then also along the same lines about businesses, this weekend apparently one of our local reporters got reports of several people being in a local business without face coverings on. So they asked if these public social gatherings or being in public places without facial coverings put the community at risk, what enforcement tools does the county have to ensure compliance?
Well, number one, people can always call us and complain. If people are in a business and they're employees, they can always contact the manager and say, your employees aren't masked, you're supposed to be masked, as far as the requirements of public health officers. What we don't want to do is we don't want to have the businesses come in to be the enforcers of it. They have the right to refuse service for anyone if they're not wearing a shirt or if they're not wearing a mask. They can refuse service to anyone along those guidelines. And so I think it's important that they understand there's no requirement under the public health officer's order to enforce this. This is a guideline for them to be able to set up those internal policies. But if they feel the need that there are people that are there and they're not leaving because they're not wearing a mask, they can always call law enforcement and we can go and have a talk with them about it. So we don't want to take it to that extreme. And again, our goal is not to put anyone in jail for not wearing a mask. And there also could be a lot of different reasons why someone is not wearing a mask. They could have a medical condition they can't tolerate. There might be a lot of different things. And so we don't want people going around arbitrarily pointing at people, where's your mask? Do what you can for yourself to protect the community. I want people to continuously doing that. Think about this not as for discomfort for me. It's someone to protect another person. Are these steps that we can do to take care of those other people that are most vulnerable out there? Let's do that. Let's think about others, and that's the reason why we're wearing the mask.
And I know that, our emergency operations center has been working really hard throughout this entire thing. Can you talk a little bit about what the EOC has been doing and what some people might not know is actually going on behind the scenes?
Right. As soon as the public health emergency was declared, there was, public health had their own operations center, and we had our joint information center kind of working side by side. As soon as the county declared a local, basically emergency, and then we carried on to a local emergency, our Office of Emergency Services kicked into action. Office of Emergency Services is a office under the Office of the Sheriff, and our goal is to help manage emergencies, all these local emergencies. And we're a part of the standardized emergency management system here in the state and the national incident management system through the federal government. And it's a way for us to manage emergencies on a federal, state, and local level. The idea here is that when a major disaster occurs, major emergency like this occurs, is that we need additional resources, and we need to funnel all those resources and tracked properly through the county. So my job through the Office of Emergency Services is to put a staff together to properly do that. And so what we've done is we have about 60 people now that are working in our Office of Emergency Services at our Emergency Operations Center that are tasked with that very job, is to support this emergency, this public health emergency. So this thing that we've wanted to stand up, which is the alternate care site, we needed to add beds and our bed capacity to our hospitals. Essentially, hospitals did what they could. They staffed as they could rearrange their hospital setting to push as many beds as possible inside their facility, but we're still short. So we had to create an alternate care site. Our EOC kicked into action, and we were working with Cal OES, and we brought together essentially a 100-bed alternate care site that they can use, that as people are starting getting well out of the hospital, they can go and use this if we're in a place where we need it. Now the state roadmap says we need to put this in place in order to loosen up our restrictions, and so that's one of the steps that the EOC used. So that's just one of the many factors. There's other things that we're doing to support the emergency. One, financially. So we're tracking all the expenses to make sure that the county and the cities don't become bankrupt over this, because there's a lot of federal funding and state funding that can be used to reimburse our response costs. And so that is one of the key factors, our finance section here, to make sure that things are tracked so that counties and the cities can get reimbursed up to 93% for certain purchases, including costs for staffing. So all these things, is a cost, as well as small business. Small businesses and business in general is a part of our Emergency Operations Center for the outreach for small businesses and to lend support for small businesses. And so there's a lot of different things we're doing there. Planning, operations, logistics, all those things are funneled through the EOC. And then and any request that we can't fill within the county, we would push that request to the state level. And the state then pushes it to the county. And then if it's a city request, we push it down to the cities. So it is a major operation, as well as our Joint Information Center is utilized. Right now we have close to 25 or 30 personnel assigned to our Joint Information Center, and it's filled with the most talented people in the county. These people are there to utilize all the latest information from the public health officer, from Cal OES, from the federal level, and push out information to the public from a credible source. And this is the information that I'm using. This is the information that the public health officer is using to make, the most reasonable decisions based upon all the circumstances. And so we're doing that right now. And so we're really, really, we take this serious, and we're living by this information that we're receiving and pushing it out. And then so, if anything, I think we're oversharing information, but people have to go where the information is. So the information that our wonderful JIC team has put together is all on humboldtgov.org, okay? And it's our main county webpage, and the main webpage is dedicated to our COVID response. And so that's where you're going to get the latest information. We have Facebook, we're on radio, we're on TV, we're in print, print media. So we're trying to get the word out as much as we can, and we'll continue to do so. But we urge people to validate the information. I know people are shopping around as much as they can to try and validate information from one way or another. There's a lot of opinions out there about how things should be doing and should be going. But at the end of the day, it's like, I have to live by the decisions, okay? Dr. Frankovich has to live by those decisions here. If we screw up and things are not right, then we're responsible for those decisions. If someone else's decision to make it here for Humboldt County, they have no culpability, but we have culpability here, and we take this job very, very serious, and we're doing our best to make sure that our community is safe. That's our number one priority, is that our community is safe, and that we will open things up when we have permission from the state, and that we will, be utilizing a lot of the information we've received here in the county and from the cities to make sure we're making the right steps in our next phase.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, I was a little long-winded, I think. So, yeah.
Is there anything else you want to include?
No, but I just really appreciate everyone's patience here in this. I think it's important that they know that, we're taking this serious. We hear everyone's feedback. We know people are in fear. We know people are frustrated because their businesses are not up and running. And everyone wants to be done with this. Believe me, everyone is ready to be done. But we don't want to just unfold what we've all done at once to get right back in the same situation we're in. So please continue to be patient with us. Continue to abide by the health officer's orders, and we will do our best to get out all this together, and we'll come out stronger than ever.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.